This is the November meeting of the Nottingham Zoning Board of Adjustment. Members of the board present are, to my right, Raylene Shippey Rice, Teresa Bascom, she's the vice chairman, Bonnie Winona McKinnon, I'm the chair, Terry Bonzer, and Peter White. So we have a public hearing tonight on an application from case number 19012-VA. Application from Deborah and Andrew Harmon for a variance request from Article 2, Section C1A, and Article 2, Section C2 of the Nottingham zoning ordinance. And just so you know what those two articles are about, Article 2, C1A is the section on road frontage and the road frontage requirement per the zoning ordinance. And Article 2, C2 is on setbacks. So these applicants are asking for, sounds like, two variances. To permit construction of a single loft camp with deck on a lot without required frontage and within zoning setbacks. The property is located at 40 Whites Grove Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire, and is identified as tax map 63, lot 63. And I'd just like to go over briefly our public hearing rules, just so whoever's speaking before the board tonight knows what they are. They're pretty simple. So I will call the hearing in session, which I've sort of already done. The hearing is now in session, and read the application. Members of the board may ask questions at any point during anybody's testimony, so we can ask you to stop and answer some of our questions. Each person who appears shall be required to state their name and address and indicate their affiliation to the case. Any member of the board, through the chairperson, may request any party to the case to speak a second time. Any party to the case who wants to ask a question of another party to the case must do so through the chairperson. The applicant shall be called to present their case, and those abutters in favor shall be allowed to speak. Then those abutters in opposition shall be allowed to speak. The board will hear any evidence that pertains to the case from other parties that wish to speak. I don't see a lot of other parties in the room, but the applicant and those in favor shall be allowed to speak in rebuttal. Those in opposition shall be allowed to speak in rebuttal. The chairperson shall present a summary setting forth the facts of the case and the claims made for each side, with opportunity given for correction from the floor. The hearing shall be declared closed. The board may vote to approve or disapprove the application immediately after the close of the hearing, or wait until the members can prepare their statements of reason for their vote, with a final decision of the board made within 30 days of the hearing tonight, with a simple majority necessary to validate a decision. And so, I didn't look at our agenda tonight, Joanna, but is this question of voting on the agenda tonight?
No.
Okay, we'll just discuss it then.
That just arrived in my email today.
Okay, but I can take your words under advisement, and maybe we'll just do the one-time thing, and then we can discuss it and hopefully make it part of our rules, and or the rest of the board can beat me up over it. So there we go. So is the applicant prepared to make your case? Are you both applicants?
He's a friend and my builder, and this is Greg Beavis. He's here just for my...
He's welcome to come up if he's going to contribute to your presentation.
Sure. I'll be presenting. My name is Andy Harmon. Would you prefer that I stand or sit?
No, you can sit down. It's too hard to see the stuff down on the table.
All right. So, as you stated, we're looking to actually rebuild. The camp has been there a very long time. And just by way of background, what we're looking to do is build exactly on the footprint we have. We're not expanding out in any direction whatsoever. In looking at your materials, advising applicants, I understand it's for me to run through each of the
5 criteria.
5 criteria.
Yeah, because the statute requires you to convince
Sure.
us that you've met those criteria in order for us to allow you to do what you want
And
to do.
because it might come up, I'll point out at the outset that I already have the New Hampshire DES septic approval.
Excuse me 1 second. Could you please move the microphone closer to you for the recording? Thank you very much.
I already have the New Hampshire DES septic approval as well as the shoreland permit. And this lot is a planning board approved lot. And that's in the materials that we submitted. And that's C-16707 from July 22, 1987. So all we're looking to do is rebuild what we have. So we would submit, it's not contrary to the public interest because we're keeping to the same footprint. There's no change to the public interest actually, except we would submit to the better. I try not to take offense if somebody tells me it's kind of an eyesore. It is. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed, and I don't plan to just keep repeating that it's the same footprint, but in addition, there's no expanded use in any way whatsoever. Substantial justice would be done because this is necessary to make this habitable. What has happened is that the roof leaks many places. The electric service was taken out by a tree that came down. For me to reestablish electric service, I have to have the whole place rewired to code, modern wiring. And at the same time, on all 4 sides, there's serious rot on the building. These were built a good while ago. And so just to resume then, substantial justice would be done because it's necessary to make it habitable again. And there is no impact on others, not even in terms of view. We have abutters on each side, but no one across the road from us. That wouldn't even be a concern. Surrounding values are not diminished in any way, not impacting their use of their homes or camps, and in fact, the surrounding values would presumably only be increased, but certainly not decreased in any way. I would submit that when we purchased this back in 2008, nobody knew where the septic is. I don't know where the septic is to this day. Having a brand new state-approved septic could only serve to help our neighbors now and in the future.
And the ecology of the lake.
Yes.
Yeah,
So not just the immediate abutters, everyone.
right.
And of course, that septic is required for us to be able to rebuild. So that's part of it. That's already approved. Lastly, the literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship because what we're trying to do, again, just sticking to the footprint, is essential to our use to have this livable, habitable. It's certainly, if I can say this politely, it's certainly assessed as a building that's livable and habitable, but it isn't livable and habitable. There's no relationship between the ordinance's regulation of the character of the neighborhood and denying this application, because to grant this application is just to continue the very same use that's been going on side by side with our neighbors in that neighborhood. Alternatively, and this is 5B, I think 5A would be satisfied, but in the alternative under 5B, the serious slope of the land, the pre-existing non-conforming lot size, don't allow for the building to be put in any other place, or really in any other size. So I would submit either A or B on 5 would be satisfied. Let's see. I guess, I think you have some questions. I'll be more than happy to answer anything.
I just have one quick question. So you're going to be continuing this as a seasonal property, seasonal use?
Certainly. We live in Raymond, and I'm one of those people who you'll never get out of his house, quite honestly. And so we chose this because of its proximity, so that we could actually use it for weekend or even just spur of the moment, overnight, that sort of thing. And I left out, so I'm glad in asking your question, you reminded me. It's currently has 2 physical bedrooms and a loft. And what we're constructing has a loft, but doesn't have the 2 bedrooms. Because it's only 24 by 26, 24 and a half by 26 and a half. And so it's all the more so a camp when we're done, because it'll just be a loft and open space. Currently, it's a loft with 2 separate bedrooms.
And you bought it in 2008?
Yes.
Have you been using it since then, or?
We've been using it continuously, although the use in the last several years has kind of been sad. There's nothing sexist about this. This is just preference. I'd be happy to sleep on the ground with a tent. My wife does not feel the same way. And she would tell you this would be sleeping outdoors. And she's right. And so the last several years have been sort of a sad use. We use it outdoors on the dock for a couple of hours, and then it goes unused. The indoors doesn't get used. And we've waited a few years as our youngest has gotten older, coming out of inventory, if you will, and we've been financially planning to make a go of this, and now's the time when we can do it. So we've been paying the taxes and not using it until the day when we could actually do this. When I say not using it, no one sleeps there. We use the dock, we swim, you might go in and get changed.
My question will seem redundant based on what you said, but just to make sure I'm clear, you're tearing down the current building and removing it and putting an entirely new foundation?
An entirely new, right on the exact same footprint, literally.
Right, but is there a foundation? I mean, is there a cellar way?
There
or
is a
it
cellar,
or is it a?
currently.
There is.
But the cellar walls are all wood, and which is part of the rot that we have throughout. So it would have a foundation
Right.
when we rebuild.
So you're going to put in a cement foundation?
I think it will be a poured cement foundation.
Right now, it has a few rocks in there.
Right.
Correct.
So I have a question, but it's really more for the administration, and maybe Joanna can answer it. So I don't see the letter from the building inspector in here.
What's the last page?
Oh, it's on the last page.
Oh, in the
Oh.
back.
It's on the back of
Way in the back?
the, well, it's on the
Let's
back,
start
behind
this.
the deed,
Yes.
Yeah, it was
behind the
scanned.
tax card.
I apologize, with my absence, it was scanned differently than normal.
It's usually right in the beginning,
Right,
that's why.
there, this is scanned
Oh, it's
that
right by
way.
my thumb. Oh, I was reading from it earlier. So my other question is, and maybe Terry can jump in on this, being an old zoning board member. Why did they need the road frontage variance if it's an existing building and they're just replacing it?
I can answer that.
Can you?
I think it's because the road it's on, my understanding from inquiring is that by state law, we have to get a variance to do any building, even though it's just a rebuild.
Because it's not a town road, you mean?
What's that?
Because it's not a town
It's not
road.
recognized.
But it's
as
not a
town road, I
residence.
believe.
It's not a residence.
True.
State
And so evidently that's been required. I haven't attended any selectmen meetings. My understanding is the selectmen have said that anything that's a pre-existing approved lot will be approved on the road. but the building inspector was just being careful and saying, I don't have permission to just waive the road.
The reason I ask
So it
is,
became one of the two issues that we had to appeal.
I replaced a building on my property. I'm not on a private road, I'm on a town road, and maybe that's the difference. I didn't need any kind of variance, even though it doesn't meet any of the setbacks, according to the ordinance. Because I had the footprint, I was paying taxes on it, I had the right to rebuild it. And that's why I question whether you need that second variance. Because you're already there, you're already paying taxes on a building that's there. I can see it for the septic. What do you think, Terry?
No, I mean, I kind of agree with you on, that I don't, he is building in the
You know, I
same
rebuilt
spot,
my
but
house.
I think he's doing it as a precaution, and if he needs it, he might as well get it now.
Well, to be honest,
My approach was to just ask, what does anyone need? If I can do it, I will be happy to do it. And so we were appealing on both. And he just explained that he just didn't feel authorized to have only one denial. He thought it was required of him to deny on both, and then I come before you.
I have a question just as a new member. When people have come before, they have come with plans of what the proposed finished structure will be. We don't have any of those plans. Do we need them?
No. We formerly thought we did, but apparently we do not. We're only to review what he's asking for, which is road frontage variance, setback variance. The rest of it is not in our purview.
Okay.
That's my understanding anyway.
I just wanted to make sure, because we've had them.
I know we have, yes.
if I may say.
I have, though.
Okay. I may say, I was also confused about why he even had to come to the ZBA, because I thought you were allowed to replace an existing building.
On the same footprint.
Same
You're not
footprint.
changing it, so I don't understand, I don't,
My understanding of state law is that you have to get, on a private or emergency lane, whatever type of road, you have to get a building permit approved by the selectmen. So the selectmen would have to approve your building permit,
My understanding is,
not us.
after coming to you, I think the selectmen would then also
weigh in.
have to act as to the road, although they have indicated previously that if it's a pre-existing approved lot, they telegraph to everybody what their answer will be.
It's not just that it's an
Let's just make sure we
approved,
double cross the Ts and double dot the
Yeah.
Is.
it's not just that it's an approved lot. I
Well,
mean,
here it's an actual
We've had
building
variances
in
for
place.
approved lots that have nothing on them and people want to build on them. That's a
Yes.
different issue. You have a building that's
Right,
there.
but
You want to replace
mine-
the same footprint. I
Exactly.
don't see why you need that second.
Exactly.
myself.
My position would be that our status is all the stronger, but it was explained to me whether it's a pre-existing building or just a approved lot, that was the procedure. So,
But just so you all can be aware, in our state book, it states that from and after the time when a planning board, or ZB in this case, has been granted the authority to approve or disapprove plats by municipality, as described in RSA 674-35, no building shall be erected on any lot within any part of the municipality, nor shall any building permit be issued for the erection of a building unless the street giving access to the lot upon which such a building is proposed to be placed, A, shall have been accepted as opened or shall otherwise receive the legal status of Class 5 or better, or corresponds with its location and lines within the street shown on the official map. And then down to D, it says, is on a private road. And then it goes on to talk about special considerations of the private road. And that's where the whole part comes in, because our zoning says that no building can be on them unless you get a variance.
The building's already there, though.
okay.
Right, but you're still going to be taking something down and doing some building. So in order to cover that part that you're going to be doing building on it, we have to say it's okay. The only way we can get around this, which doesn't help you, is to talk to the select board and have them give our building inspector permission to waive something like this.
The selectmen will have to approve it anyways, I think that's,
I think you're right.
yeah.
So
So,
we just
anyways,
make it easier for them to do that,
Correct.
if we approve
But
it.
it's all because of state statute
And private roads.
and the private road issue.
That must be the difference.
Yeah,
I didn't need any variance to do what he's doing.
right, but you don't live on.
Right, you don't.
But it was a public road, right, that's the difference.
it is now an accepted street, it's on our town street maps, so once again, I think
It's not a
it's moved.
public street.
Well, I think according to the definition of street, it is.
Okay, Peter, that's not our purview either.
I actually can quote you that if you'd like, but that's another discussion.
So, does any other board member have questions of the applicant?
No, I think we're all kind of in agreement that it's a, why are you here?
Let's go through the.
So,
ready?
I'm ready, if everybody else is ready.
You want a motion, or are we gonna go?
So we should deliberate after I close the public hearing.
Correct.
If we're done with the public hearing, I hereby declare the public hearing closed. You may now go back to your audience seats. You're welcome.
So Bonnie, how do you want to do the voting tonight?
So, yeah, just, if I can just take a little side trip here. I hope everybody's been able to read this paper that was, did you give one of these to everybody, Joanna?
I
Okay. Which is really clarifying how boards are to vote on things, because there are different options. And we have, of late anyway, always voted on the 5 criteria separately, which, for many reasons, we agreed was a good practice. But Joanna is saying to me before the meeting, we don't need to do that and vote on a motion on the whole thing. So,
But we can,
but it muddies the waters
in
legally.
terms of how.
I'm not an attorney. This is advice that comes from New Hampshire Municipal Association, probably, or the town attorney, or the SRPC circuit rider, whatever that means. SRPC. Joanna, do you know?
Stratford Regional
Stephanie
Planning
Cassell,
Commission.
oh, thank you, okay.
She
But
was
it does
writing
say
this
after
night.
So a
that-
circuit rider
But
made
it
me
says
think.
one must be chosen and used consistently.
Well, we have been consistently
Right.
using, voting on the 5 criteria separately. So that means if any member of the board votes against any of the 5 criteria, you basically are denying.
Right.
That's a denial, because they need to get all 5, excuse me. That doesn't mean they don't get their approval, but that means your vote as a member is basically against the application. Does that make sense? Everybody get that? So the other thing that we have done
Results.
in the past is to also have a motion that covers the whole application, which, for reasons that are unknown to me at the moment, is probably not a good practice. Because you're covered by the first section. Why do it twice?
But it seems that voting on each of the 5 criteria makes sense.
It does, and that, so if it's recommended that we not do both, I would prefer to vote on the 5 criteria, and I just want to get a consensus from the board that that's okay with everybody.
And I would also add, that's what we've been doing, so that would keep it
I
consistent.
like that one.
It is, I've been on the board a long time, and in the beginning, we used to, and then we started voting on just the the whole application, and then we went back to it because of a couple of problems that arose. And this is really clearer. These are the 5 reasons, which if they convince us they meet these 5 reasons, we must grant it. So,
I do have one question. So we vote on criteria, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 3, we don't agree.
we don't have to agree.
Okay, no, we don't approve. Criterion number 3, we don't approve. Do we continue to go ahead and on 4 and 5, or does the
Well,
one,
that's a good question.
or
That
does the
knocks them
ones
out.
we say a criterion isn't approved, that's the end of the
No,
vote?
we would continue on because
I would agree with
if
you.
they were going to appeal it, they have to have a decision on each
Okay.
criteria
That's what I thought, but I
Take it to
wasn't
court.
sure if
to appeal.
continued or just stopped.
So if everyone is in agreement, we will vote on the 5 criteria as if each were, well, they're not exactly a motion.
But we're still gonna make a motion because we have to.
We'll make a motion to vote on the 5 criteria.
Right, but because in that motion, we have to put in stipulations if we choose, you know.
Okay.
Sometimes we put gutters or rain
Rain
barrels,
spouts.
different things, but.
Okay, so I
So
think
do
we
you want to
have,
vote on that first before we do anything else?
do you think we need to vote on it? Let's
No,
vote
if
on
nobody
it.
objects, we could.
Nobody objected to it.
Okay, we don't need a motion to say that we are choosing the 5 criteria.
We
as
already
our
have that in our
message.
history.
Yeah, I think it's our established procedure.
And we don't have anything, we didn't discuss the motion part of the extra, as I recall. And we just did this about last summer, wasn't it? Or was it the
wouldn't-
summer before?
So,
If they are saying we need to be clear about the decision, would it make sense to have a motion that says we are going to pursue this path, and then have it documented that that is the path that we have chosen and we've all voted on it?
Well,
Just-
we have voted on it in the past, I do believe, and we have added it into our procedure.
The other thing that will be done and needs to be done is it needs to be added into our
bylaws.
bylaws. Thank you.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is.
So
then
can we,
vote
can
on
we
it then.
adjust our bylaws in midstream, Joanna? Do you know?
No, we can just add them.
We usually do it in April. We usually do it annually in April. That's why I'm asking Joanna, as if she has to know everything. Sorry.
I
Sorry.
will find out if we need to adjust our bylaws partway through. I'm
Okay,
not
but
sure.
we don't have to do that tonight.
Okay.
I say we wait
Well,
until our
yes.
next meeting and do a little research on it, but tonight, that we go by these guidelines, vote on the 5 criteria,
As we've been doing.
as we've been doing.
So it says whichever method is chosen should be specified in the ZBA rules of procedures, and you're saying it already is in the rules of procedures.
I know that we voted on it,
So we are just confirming that what is in our rules of procedures, we are going to continue.
What we're really doing is doing away with the second motion part.
Okay, and should we make a statement? That's what we're doing. I'm just trying to make sure that there's anything down the road that somebody's asking a,
What I don't know is
Question.
if we can at any point adjust our rules, or can we only do it annually? I don't know the answer to that. And I think we can just as easily tonight adopt this for tonight and deal with it at the next meeting after Joanna's had time to do a little
I hate to
research.
belabor the point, it just seems to me as if it would be better to have that documented.
We don't
in
have
the
enough
minutes.
information, though. I don't.
That's our procedure, okay, because we're just doing our,
Our current bylaws do not state how we vote, it just says that we will vote. The board may vote to approve or disapprove the application immediately after the close of the hearing, or wait until the members can prepare their statement, just as she read
has
earlier.
it
and
voted to
vote.
adopt such change and shall apply.
Joanna?
If you're concerned about having it documented that you guys agreed.
That's all I'm saying.
It's in the
is-
minutes.
Right, it should be
It's in the minutes
documented.
tonight.
That's my only point,
Okay,
is
so
that
it's
it should be in, it should be documented, that we've had discussion, that we've
And the-
made this
Oh, yeah,
motion.
she does
we're
that.
following.
Yeah, it's documented right now in here.
And so by our next meeting, are we meeting next month?
Yes.
We can take that up and make it a permanent part of our rules if we're allowed to change them.
Right, I just
In the
want to
middle of the year.
document it somewhere. that's
It is, it's the minutes.
So everybody good now? Okay, so is anyone prepared to make a motion to get the 5 criteria out there?
I'll make a motion that we approve for variance case 19-012-VA, the application from Deborah and Andrew Harmon for a variance request from Article 3C1A and Article 2C2 of the Nottingham zoning ordinance to permit construction of a single loft camp with deck on a lot without required frontage and within zoning setbacks at 40 Whites Grove Road, tax map 63, lot 63.
Peter, you stated Article 3, it's Article 2C. Just a point of correction.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me borrow
You
those.
need glasses.
I do, I usually have reading glasses.
Article
I apologize.
2C1A and Article 2C2. Did you get that, Joanne? Yes. You can have it. Okay, so I think we've corrected that.
Thank you.
And I will second the correction.
So there's a motion on the floor to to approve the application before the board, and we will vote on it by voting on the 5 criteria, which is our way.
I'm sorry, you seconded.
I did.
Okay, the 5 criteria. Number 1, the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. All those who agree with that statement, please raise your right hand. Number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Those who agree, raise your right hand. Substantial justice is done. All those who agree, raise your right hand. The values of the surrounding properties are not diminished by this request. Those who agree. And number 5, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. For purposes of this paragraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. All those who agree with that, raise your right hand. Those who oppose. And he also added section B, the proposed use is a reasonable one. All those who agree with that, please raise your right hand. There was, everybody, you got a unanimous decision on every criteria.
Very much.
Which is unusual, I might say, and so there was no chance for me to call for opposing votes. So let me just say that anybody in the world has 30 days to appeal our decision. It could be appealed in the Superior Court. It could be appealed directly to us by asking us to rehear it. I don't see a big bunch of people here
I
complaining.
think my voters would be quite happy.
So, but you just should be aware that if you start work in the next 30 days, it's at your own risk if somebody does appeal, that's all.
I don't think they'll be happy if their values go up, though.
They just don't want to be
Yeah,
reassessed
yeah,
afterward. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good luck with that.
Thanks.
Did you say 30 days or 45?
Oh, it's 40.
Is it 45?
Yes.
45 days, excuse me.
Got it.
I thought it was
That's the
30
big deal
days.
is-
It changed,
It changed,
yeah, and I
Okay.
put it in your binders at the last meeting.
so I missed it at the last
Yeah, and I
meeting.
don't think it's in your binders anymore, but it
Right.
changed one of the legislative meetings.
Wonder why they increased the length of time. That doesn't seem fair to homeowners who are
Well, it's-
trying to get things done.
Well, it's interesting because almost anything that in court is a 30-day appeal, for anything, not just land use. So maybe the court system changed it.
I think, I want to say it was in favor of the appealing process, not
The-
for the applicant, but it's for the appeal process, to give more time for an appeal to go through. But I agree.
So please correct me in the future if I,
I have one more question.
Yes.
And I should know the answer to this, and I know I looked it up, but it's escaping me for the moment. We have to approve all 5 criteria positively. Number 5 has A and B.
Correct.
One assumes they both have to be approved.
no, I don't think so. I believe they only have to prove one or the other of those. But I may be wrong. Maybe that also should be researched. Most people fill out both parts of it. Let me see if,
Yeah, it does seem to be either one or the other.
but maybe, see, under B, it says, if the criteria in subparagraph A, that's the one above, are not established, an unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist. And only if, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, the property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformation with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable a reasonable use of it.
It says and.
Did this case qualify for, I would say, did this qualify for a special exception? I mean, he did a variance, but,
I wasn't part of this whole application
okay,
process.
no, I mean, because I didn't know which,
Yeah. I don't know if it would have qualified for it. I don't think so because we're talking about road frontage, not setbacks.
But Peter was in, I mean, last time, and I'm not sure if he had a road frontage. Peter Landry, they were doing one for, was it Evans?
I don't remember that far back right
Yeah.
now, but I do recall one of those cases was a special exception, and what
Right.
the reason for that was, I'm not certain again. I think that was a septic setback. And-
Might have been, yeah, the house was there, so he didn't,
Which would make sense for it to have been a special exception then.
yeah.
But yeah, this whole entire one went through when I was on my
Right.
committee classes, so I don't know the history behind this one at all. Do you all need a refresher on the select board building permit application on private and class 5 roads, or 4 roads? Do you need a refresher,
I
or
think
do you
that-
want that in your binders?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
because that's one of our main kind of cases.
Yeah,
That was a-
and that's why this went before you. That is the whole reason why.
The private
And
road.
I understand that it was a building, not a dwelling, but it still is gonna receive a certificate of occupancy because people will be living there, even if it's an overnight, they'll be sleeping in there.
He said
So
they
it's
don't sleep
still-
there, but you can't prevent anybody from sleeping there. Anybody could. I
Well,
understand
if the
that.
loft is available for sleeping and there have couches and stuff like that, then you can assume that people will.
Yeah. So, and they have a whole list of,
And they could sell it to somebody who could do something.
yeah, yeah. There's a, that might have been the older one, the old select board policy. But at any rate, the erection of new habitable buildings was part of the reason why this whole thing went through to you guys. Okay? But yeah, I will make a note of that to include that in your binders.
And isn't there some procedure in process after which we won't be getting these cases? They're gonna go directly to the selectmen, or am I dreaming?
You would get less of the cases if we changed the definition of frontage.
So that won't be
It's
till
not
after
going to
town meeting?
eliminate them.
That is correct.
So that'd be a zoning change, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Planning
is.
board's working on it.
It's gonna happen, that's one of my big projects this week.
And who makes that decision?
The voters,
The voters.
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You're gonna say, "I'll come up with,"
The planning board will have to present it to the voters.
no, it won't be at town meeting, it will be on the ballot.
Before,
It'll be a,
oh, a ballot item.
correct.
All zoning changes go to ballot.
And what was the decision about number 5?
what was the
The
decision?
criteria.
And.
You only have to approve one A or B, or A and B?
That is my understanding, but maybe that's something you could ask somebody, Joanna.
I think you only have to approve one, but
That's what I think,
people
too.
see both questions, they.
That's
they'll vote
exactly
on it.
right.
That's right.
And if they answer both of them, I think we have to
But we
vote on both of
them,
them.
that's right.
Because then if it goes to court, if anybody takes it to court,
That's what I'm
it's been
saying.
completed.
I think we need to be clear on whether it's either or both. I would feel more comfortable if it was clear on.
Well, if they fill out both, then we'd have to say, which one do you want us to vote on?
I questioned that it might be both only because the word "and" is at the end of the sentence for,
And
And a
that's why I'm
variance.
asking you what the story is.
Are you talking about and a variance is therefore necessary?
no, right here,
And
this one
and
here.
2, the proposed
The
uses.
one above, okay.
Doesn't say or.
That's
or
right,
and
it does
or.
say both. So it looks like both are required, except that,
Okay.
That's for 5A, big A, but that's the proposed uses.
5A. So 1 and 2 are part of 5A. And then B is separate, though.
Correct. I do agree that B is.
So the question is, do they need to do A and B, or just A or B? Or just B if A is not established? That's how I've always understood it. If the criteria aren't established in A, then you have to deal with B. Which usually, to me, they don't, but most people fill them out.
It just says for B that if the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, an unnecessary hardship is deemed to exist.
Right.
And then goes on to that, but that doesn't look like
If and only if, though.
any part of that is something we would vote, right? It's like B is negated if, depending on how the vote above it goes. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you vote one yes in A, then B's doesn't need to be done, and if you vote no, then B would need to be done, so that there's two ways that could be passed, but they are, one counts out the other. Does that make sense to you? But that's the way I read it
It
anyway.
makes about 80% sense, and it's not that you're not making sense, it's that it's not clicking in my head exactly what it
okay.
means.
All right.
So I would kind of like somebody to tell us.
I'll check with the planner.
It'd be good to know for sure.
That's just the way it
So maybe we
reads.
can bring that up when we're
Particularly
dealing
if, you know, we're,
with this.
you know, if you can, if either one gets turned down for whatever reason, then does that negate the whole thing, is the concern?
I think if A gets voted down, you go to B. If A passes, you don't need B. If A doesn't pass, then you go to B.
That's
That's how I read it anyway.
That's how I've always understood it. without totally
So the only one that
understanding.
really needs to pass is 5A.
Well, either one could.
Either.
Correct.
If A doesn't pass, then B can carry it. Isn't that what you understand?
That's how I understand it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You can get some written clarification.
Yeah, I'd like
Yes,
that
I do.
clarified, because if A doesn't pass, then it seems to me
Look, we
That's-
we
that's
we
why
can
I'm-
always be educating ourselves, because the laws change all the time.
Time.
Procedures change, courts clarify things or muddy them up, and we cannot be expected to know all of this stuff.
Right.
But we can find out what we can and do the best job we can. That's,
Joanna, at our next meeting, do we have time to go over some stuff, or are we booked solid?
You have two cases. I'm putting in my opinion on this, so please understand it's my opinion. One of them I think is going to be very confusing because it's 5 parties, but 1 case.
5 parties are the owners, you mean?
Yeah, 5 owners. Or, well, if you want to double that, because each owner has 2 owners of the property, then that's actually 10 owners.
5 couples, you mean?
And I need all of you here, please, because
What,
Kevin's one of the owners.
What date is that one?
December 17th, I think.
It's right here in your book.
Happy Christmas.
Yeah, I might not be here for that.
So Kevin will
17th.
be able to play because Kevin is one of the applicants, so that's why, if possible.
December
it would be
17th.
best.
It might not.
Okay.
It depends. Depends on the weather.
There's a slight chance that that group will not get their application in time. I know the application period had passed, but they were all confused as to the fact that all owners of the property need to sign, not just one. So they, in good faith, I'm giving them a little bit more time because they did intend to drop it off to me yesterday, but they weren't all signed by every party of owners.
When's their deadline?
The deadline was yesterday. So I'm giving them a little bit more time to get the application to me, because in legality, you have 30 days to, you have to hear the case within 30 days, and if you actually play this all out, it
You
doesn't
accepting
really
it.
get more than 30 days right now, so. So I'm giving them until the 1st, and I have 5 days to process it, so I'm giving them a little bit of wiggle room. So that's one case, and then you have one other case that has 3 variances in one case. I don't feel that that one will be too challenging. I really think the other one will be more because of the number of parties.
Okay. So that wouldn't be a good time for us to schedule in some training?
No, no, I really don't think so.
So maybe January?
Maybe January.
But it would be good to have these questions cleared up before that meeting.
And I have those notes on my agenda list so that I have that right before me for tomorrow. Still playing a lot of catch up from my leave of absence, but I will do my best to get those out right away. It shouldn't be too hard to communicate with stuff on that. I anticipate more cases coming in January too, so definitely keep an eye on your inboxes.
Okay.
And stay healthy, take your vitamin C and get your rest, so you're here.
Okay.
It would be nice if we had a couple more people like Kevin.
I agree. So if
I mean,
anybody
having
knows-
one
Is
is,
he the only alternate?
yes, at the moment he is, and he has been for like 2 years, the only alternate.
So if anybody knows anybody that's got Tuesday nights free,
I keep asking.
yeah.
I do. Every chance I get it, at any kind of town function, I ask people.
please, definitely, spread the word. So, there's 2 sets of minutes that I laid out for you guys, and I had also sent while I was on my leave of absence, so. Vote on those tonight, that'd be great.
Did you put the dates down? You didn't.
So, no, I was trying to give one of these away, but I see now it's 2 different meetings.
Yeah, I thought only one of them, October 15th. Is there another one?
There's
September 17th. I put both of them over there for the 2 of you to share.
Oh, okay.
Because there was
so
she only made 2.
They thought there were 2 of the same. It's-
the other one.
You can see, if you look at this, they're different, but.
These were, I'll move for acceptance of September 17th, 2019 as written, and the slight edits I had sent to Joanna.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes of September 17th. All those in favor of accepting these minutes as presented, please raise your right hand. Those opposed? And you abstained, Raylene was not present at that meeting. Okay, now we have October 15th. Do we have discussion about this
I know I don't have to.
minutes?
Yeah, I had a few proposed changes. All had to do with things that I stated, but on line 46, that the ZBA's job is to protect the lake and surrounding properties. I don't think I would have said that. I would have said our job is to protect the public interests and balance the public interests with private interests. Once again, I wouldn't specify one piece of town. No, I mean, our job is to protect the public interest in the whole town and to balance it with the interests of the property owner. So I don't think that's what I said.
Well, everything's recorded. Joanna, did you listen to the recordings?
You did listen to the recordings. You didn't send me those edits, so I wasn't able to compare those edits.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to work on it till today, but, yeah, so I would change that in line 46. Once again, I think it was a little out
You
of
can only change it
context.
to what was stated, though.
Well, I don't think I stated that, and if I need to go and watch the video, I will, but I don't think I would have said something
let's keep
that
that.
limiting.
Let's keep it
So
civil.
I'd like to have that changed. And there's a couple others. Line 119, I was not chastised at a meeting, when I went to the training I went to. One person kidded me about it, the moderator. He says, well, you're meant to be the judge, you have to try to come up with a decision. I wasn't chastised. If you look at the definition of chastised, it's pretty severe. And there wasn't anybody there that would chastise me. I mean, it was a instructor. So I'd like to change that to kidded me, or something along those lines, to make it sound less severe. And I was not chastised. And I don't think I didn't even know that word, so I don't think I used it.
So, excuse me, is it okay for me to suggest? Do you still have the tape of this?
Yes, I do.
Do you want to re-listen to it? Are you willing to change what he's asking, or can you re-listen to it and see
Yeah, I
if
can
there's...
definitely listen.
So I suggest that we not move on these minutes tonight
Okay.
until Joanna has time to
All right, there was
check
another
the
change
veracity
too,
of
so I'll
Peter's
go over that with Joanne.
objections.
But was chastised the word used at the,
That's what I'll verify.
oh,
Yeah.
And the other one that he's objecting to?
All right, well, line 123, which kind of misquoted what I was saying. And I think,
Joanna, you need
or
to
sometimes
stop
approve
making up
things
these
that are not in the
words.
public interest. That's what I said. I didn't say anything about no scrutiny. I mean, we have a hearing for every case, so I wouldn't have said that.
120.
So,
Well, that one I did discuss with you in email and let you know that that one was said that way.
yeah, I was a little surprised that a general discussion was so strongly minute and noted it. Usually a general discussion isn't, written up in the minutes. It's only decisions that are written up in the minutes unless it's during a case or something. So, yeah, I was a little curious about that.
Part of it may be, Peter, that you were very vocal at that meeting, and you wanted your points put across, and I think that is probably why they were worded in. Usually it's general talk about discussions, but you were very, very vocal and wanting to be heard, and I think that was maybe what led to your discussion being mentioned a little more than what typically happens.
Well, I would suggest if we're going to put in a general discussion and put in the entire word-for-word discussion. I mean, when you start paraphrasing things, it can kind of throw off the meaning and what somebody was trying to express. And once again, you know, in this case, give me a chance to correct something if I misstated it.
But if she states you stated, then it was what she heard you stating. If she says inferred, then that would be what you inferred.
Right, well, like I say, it's open to interpretation then, instead of being an actual minute. So if you want to put in the entire word-for-word discussion, who could say anything about that? But that would be pages and pages. But like I say, most meetings, they just cite the decisions. They don't cite the he said, she said stuff. Seems a little petty to me,
Well,
to
we
be
go
honest.
back and forth about what's supposed to be in the minutes, and I believe we are supposed to have enough information in there that anybody reading them would have a clear idea of what we talked about. Maybe not verbatim, but.
So that entire discussion
Because
about
it is-
our criteria?
It should show how the board deliberated, which contributes to how they arrived at their decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Right, when there's decisions to be made.
Well, we usually make a decision if we have a hearing. Not always, but usually.
Yeah, and then that's appropriate. You know, anything having to do with those cases should be in the minutes. But like this discussion we're having, is she going to type every word we're saying into the minutes? No, she's going to summarize it. So once again, when
Well, I
it's
think
summarized,
these are probably summaries, but they're taken from the minutes.
but each summary is kind of, you know, makes me sound bad, to be honest with you, and it's not what I intended on saying. Yeah, well, maybe I did sound bad, but it was not what I was intended to communicate.
So just
So it's a
remembering-
miscommunication.
Just remembering in general that you were very spirited at that
You were,
meeting, and you were very concerned that the board is just giving everybody what they want, and people are just out to
That is a
make lot of
concern.
money.
Yeah.
And so
mean-
you too need to take responsibility for how you lay out your words, because Joanna's listening to the tape when she's typing, and
Yeah, you were lively that day.
Well, yeah, I've been disappointed this year. I mean, you should see the monstrosity that guy's building on it. Is he a three-story garage he's building right in the middle of Whites Grove Road? The biggest building is changing permanently the character of our neighborhood.
Peter.
And nobody here cares.
it's not on the agenda tonight.
Well, it's a shameful
We don't
decision.
care.
I'm sorry. And yeah, if any of you do
See,
care,
that's-
take a ride down Whites Grove Road and see the impact of our decisions. I ask you all, I dare you all to do that. Take a ride down Whites Grove Road, all the way to the end. You will see the impact, how that neighborhood has changed because of our decisions this year. That neighborhood has been permanently changed and altered. And that three-story garage is a monstrosity.
You want that in a minute, so you...
No, we're having a general discussion.
What you say, it's a good possibility it's gonna be, it's been,
I mean, if you want, I'll type up a statement, that would be what I want in the minutes. Otherwise, when I'm sitting here talking to my board members, I don't expect somebody to be, you know, say, oh, let me put this
These
down.
are
No.
public meetings,
Yeah.
and everything we say is subject to being repeated, recorded, and
No, it
retained.
is.
Noted.
But it doesn't mean we have to pick and choose which things to put
well,
in our
there's
minutes.
no conspiracy theory here, so we're not
Exactly.
conspiring against you.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so
So
somebody
ju-
agrees with us, but
Yes, but he doesn't
So,
want us,
Assuming that we want to have a conversation, that, for example, this issue of, should the board review decisions that has been made, one way or the other, good decisions, whatever. Where would that conversation take place in a way that the board could? I'm trying to think this through.
That's a very good question, actually, and a good
So-
proposal.
I'm just
not a
trying to figure
proposal.
out, I'm
I
trying
might
to
do that.
figure out how these conversations occur. You know, the Senate has closed
hearings,
hearings and open hearings. And if the zoning board wanted to have a conversation about an issue to try and come to some kind of a process,
May I speak?
then how does the zoning board
We do it
do
in
that?
a public
Right.
forum. We
You have
are
to
not
do it.
allowed to have secret closed meetings. It is against the right to know law. We can be personally
And-
fined,
And all of it then becomes in the minutes,
subject to the minutes.
right?
I mean, they're not verbatim, but yes, anything that you say here can be recorded, can be part
Is
of the
recorded.
public record.
It is recorded.
Okay.
And that's as it should be. That's called
I'm not
transparency. in
arguing with it,
government.
I'm just saying, what is the,
Well, there's a criteria for non-public. I mean, you talk with your lawyer or something.
Right, we can have conversations with our attorney that are counsel, and those are not public. I don't know that we don't have any employees, but we can have personnel matters that are
Right.
private. But other than that, if you are a government entity, maybe accepting the US Senate, I don't know what rules they're under, but New Hampshire law requires everything that we discuss to be done in public. That's why that you, Teresa, and I cannot have coffee together and talk about one of our cases. We cannot. We cannot talk about it together on email. We cannot talk about it together on the phone. It's against the law.
Or on the parking lot or
But we
anywhere.
can have a discussion here with all the board members present, with the public watching us, because we're in a public forum right here.
Right, they've been notified.
I'll point out, like you're saying, that is our challenge, is that we can't really have these type of discussions anyplace except here. And most of the nonprofits and government agencies, I've been on the planning board, I've been on other agencies, budget committees, they wouldn't, write down all the discussion, they would write down the decisions. I've never seen any of them that would write down a whole discussion. I mean, why would you? It's just a discussion. It's the decisions that need to be recorded.
I suggest that this is not the whole discussion. And I submit that it is my understanding that the minutes should contain the general idea of what the board discussed. Because that is how we deliberate and arrive at our decisions. I mean, we vote personally, but we talk together as a board.
Correct, but I think it would be a courtesy that if somebody felt that they were misrepresented or misquoted or whatever, they would be allowed to correct the minutes to better represent what they meant to say. I mean, none of us are perfect.
No, if you could show that you said something different, that's one thing. But to have her change what you said can't be done. What you said is what you said. The only thing that can be done is if it doesn't impact the minutes in any way, then it could be redacted or taken out. But she can't write something different from what you said. Just because you meant the town and not White's Grove, she can't change it to the town when that's not what you said, because that's misrepresenting what you said.
But my point is, if she condenses the conversation and puts it in her own condensed way, she is editing out what I said. And she's saying, picking 3 or 4 lines out of a 15-minute discussion. So I don't think that's fair. You either put it all in, or you put it in and let us as board members correct it if we think we're being
I
misrepresented.
think maybe the way to solve that would be to say in the next minutes that the issue of the word, in this case chastise, was raised and discussed with the decision that the minutes would be reviewed and brought back to the next meeting.
But why all this
Essentially
bother
what we're
over
saying.
see, that's the thing, it's like it's putting the pressure on me to correct 1 word or 2 words, and it's like all of a sudden
Not
it's,
just you, but anyone.
like I said,
I know
It happens to be you because you raised it, but it's not limited to you, it's limited to anyone who feels that whatever was said misrepresented.
well, to be honest, again, most meetings I've been to, and people, better members are saying, oh, I meant to say this or this, they just correct the minutes. They don't say, oh, no, we're gonna make sure it sounds exactly like it does. They just correct the minutes if somebody says, no, I was misquoted or I was misunderstood.
I think that has never happened, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's kind of, very.
Madam Chair, is it okay if we end this discussion and?
I will entertain a
Adjourn the
motion to adjourn.
meeting? I move that we adjourn.
I'll second
Is there
it.
a second? All those in favor of adjourning, please raise your right hand. Those opposed?
Thank you.